Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
She kissed me goodnight, then whispered to her sister how they'd fake my death. 15 years of love, shattered by two women I trusted more than life. My wife cheated. Her sister wanted me dead, but also wanted to be my wife. Each night, they drugged my tea, smiled, and planned my funeral. They planted GPS trackers, fake messages, dating profiles, made me the villain in my own marriage. And while I slept, they rehearsed their perfect accident. But I wasn't sleeping. I recorded everything. At her 40th birthday party, I played my revenge. This isn't a story about heartbreak, it's about surviving betrayal and making karma scream. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. The sun was slowly sinking into the Gulf of Mexico, painting the Clearwater Beach sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. Thomas Walker stood on the fine white sand, letting the gentle waves caress his bare feet. The salty sea breeze carried the familiar scent of 15 years of marriage, a fragrance he once thought would never fade. He remembered the first day he met Michelle at an art exhibition opening in Miami in 2005. She stood before a massive oil painting of a sunset over the ocean, her long golden hair cascading down her back, a red dress hugging her perfect curves. When she turned around, Michelle's ocean blue eyes made his heart skip a beat. "What do you see in this painting?" Michelle had asked, a playful smile dancing on her lips. "I see." Thomas hesitated. "A new beginning." She giggled, the sound like silver bells. "How cliché, but I like it." They spent the entire evening talking about art, life, and dreams. Michelle worked for a major real estate firm in Tampa, while Thomas had just been promoted to regional sales manager at Pharmatech Industries. Both were ambitious, both yearning to build a beautiful life together. 6 months later, they married on Key West Beach during a similar sunset. Michelle in her pristine white wedding dress, barefoot in the sand, blonde hair dancing in the sea breeze. Family and friends surrounded them, but for Thomas, the entire world consisted of just the two of them. "I promise to love you through the good days and the hard times." Thomas read his vows, his voice trembling with emotion. "I promise to be your husband, your friend, and your protector for life." Michelle wiped away tears, her waterproof mascara thankfully holding strong. "I promise to always trust you, always stand by you, and build a bright future with you." In 2008, they bought their dream home in Tampa's prestigious Hyde Park, a Mediterranean-style villa with red tile roof, pastel yellow walls, and a garden spacious enough for Florida citrus trees. Michelle cried when Thomas carried her across the threshold. "This is our paradise," she whispered in his ear. The following years passed like a beautiful dream. Michelle's career flourished. She became one of Tampa Bay's top real estate brokers, specializing in luxury properties. Thomas also advanced rapidly, becoming Southeast Regional Sales Director for Pharmatech. Every Friday, no matter how busy, they reserved time for date night at Burns Steakhouse, Tampa's most famous restaurant. Michelle always ordered the filet mignon rare, while Thomas preferred his ribeye medium. They'd share a bottle of Bordeaux and talk for hours like new lovers. "Are you happy?" Thomas would often ask, holding his wife's hand across the flickering candlelight. "So happy it scares me," Michelle would reply, eyes glistening with emotion. "Scared that one day it will all disappear." "Never," Thomas would assure her. "I won't let that happen." Sundays meant leisurely brunches at Oxford Exchange, an elegant book cafe housed in a historic building. They'd sit for hours, Michelle reading interior design magazines while Thomas browsed the Wall Street Journal. Occasionally, they'd look up and smile at each other, a silent connection only happy couples understand. In March 2020, as COVID-19 began spreading and Florida prepared for lockdown, Hannah Michelle's younger sister appeared at their doorstep with 2 suitcases and eyes swollen from crying. "Josh divorced me," Hannah sobbed in her sister's arms. "I have nowhere to go." Thomas stood in the doorway, his heart full of compassion as he watched his sister-in-law, a woman 3 years younger than Michelle, but looking older from pain. Hannah had dark brown hair, unlike Michelle's blonde, but the same deep ocean blue eyes. "Of course you'll stay with us," Michelle said immediately. "Right, Thomas?" "Of course," Thomas agreed, though something in Hannah's gaze when she looked at him made him uncomfortable. Family needs to stick together in hard times. Hannah moved into the spacious first-floor guest room. At first, everything seemed normal. Hannah helped Michelle cook, clean the house, and joined their evening movie nights. But gradually, Thomas began noticing strange things. When he made coffee in the mornings, Hannah would always appear in flimsy pajamas, bending deeply when retrieving milk from the refrigerator. When he worked in his home office, she'd frequently knock with trivial reasons, borrowing a pen, asking about Wi-Fi, or simply to chat. "My sister is so lucky," Hannah said one afternoon when Michelle was meeting clients. She sat on the sofa, pulling her skirt higher than necessary. "Thomas is the perfect man." "Thank you," Thomas replied politely, trying to focus on his laptop. "Josh is a good person, too. Maybe you two just need time." "Josh isn't like you," Hannah interrupted, something strange in her voice. "He's not. Consider it like you." A week later, while Thomas was showering, the bathroom door suddenly opened. Hannah stood there, feigning shock. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought this was the guest bathroom," she exclaimed, but her eyes never left his body. "Hannah!" Thomas quickly pulled the curtain closed. "The guest bathroom is down the hall. I got confused. My sister's house is so big." Hannah giggled and closed the door, but not before stealing another glance. The incident repeated twice more in the following weeks. Thomas told Michelle, but his wife just laughed. "You're imagining things," Michelle soothed. "Hannah's suffering from the divorce. She's probably just distracted. But Michelle, she keeps looking at me with these eyes." "What eyes?" Michelle's voice suddenly turned cold. "Are you suggesting my sister is trying to seduce you?" "No, I'm just—" "Thomas Walker, you disappoint me. Hannah needs our help, not your baseless suspicions." Thomas fell silent, but the unease grew stronger. He began locking the bathroom door, avoiding being alone with Hannah, and trying to maintain polite distance. Then the strange messages began arriving. One Monday morning in late April, Thomas was preparing for a video meeting with his sales team when his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number made his blood run cold. "Do you remember that night at the Marriott? I can't stop thinking about you." Attached was a photo, a red-haired woman in a black cocktail dress, her face deliberately obscured. Thomas panicked. He'd never stayed at the Marriott with anyone but Michelle. He immediately ran downstairs to find his wife. "Michelle, you need to see this right now." Michelle was making tea in the kitchen, Hannah sitting beside her with coffee. When Thomas showed his wife the phone, his face went pale. "I swear to you, I don't know who this is. I've never—" Michelle looked at the message, her expression briefly shifting before quickly returning to normal, a reaction so swift that Thomas would later find it strange. "Probably just a wrong number," Michelle said, her voice oddly calm. "Or some kind of scam." "But they know my name." "And this photo." Hannah leaned over her sister's shoulder. "Doesn't look like a scam. Seems personal." "Hannah." Michelle glared at her sister. "I'm just saying." Hannah shrugged, but Thomas caught something in her eyes, satisfaction, gloating. Over the following days, messages continued arriving, each one more detailed. "Today marks 6 months since we met at the Orlando conference. Do you remember? I still have the handkerchief you gave me when I cried in the hotel bar. Does your wife know about us? I don't want to destroy your family, but I miss you so much." Thomas frantically checked his work calendar. He had indeed attended a conference in Orlando 6 months ago, but he swore he'd never met any woman. He clearly remembered returning to his room early each night to video call Michelle. One afternoon, while trying to focus on work, Thomas opened his laptop and froze. His browser history showed numerous dating sites, Match.com, eHarmony, Tinder. The profiles all bore his name with professional headshots. "What the hell?" Thomas muttered, trembling as he clicked through each site. The profiles were created months ago with detailed descriptions. Married man seeking discreet adventures. He ran downstairs, laptop in hand. Michelle was watching TV with Hannah. "Look at this. Someone hacked my computer and created—" "Thomas." Michelle stood up, her face stone cold. Don't. Don't what? You need to see. I've already seen it, Michelle said, her voice pained. Hannah found them last week when she borrowed your laptop. Thomas turned to Hannah, who was looking down in feigned embarrassment. I'm sorry, Hannah whispered. I didn't want to say anything, but my sister had the right to know. No, these aren't mine, Thomas almost shouted. Someone! Someone! Who? Michelle laughed bitterly. The mysterious woman texting you? Or some invisible hacker determined to destroy our marriage? Michelle, you have to believe me. Sister, Hannah interjected, placing a hand on Michelle's shoulder. Maybe Thomas is just lonely. The pandemic is stressing everyone out. It's not his fault. Thomas looked at Hannah in horror. What was she doing? Why was she adding fuel to the fire? I need space, Michelle said, tears welling in her eyes. Sleep in the guest room tonight. Michelle, please. But his wife had already left, Hannah following with fake concern. As she passed Thomas, she lightly touched his arm, a touch that lingered longer than normal. Everything will be okay, Hannah whispered, her breath on his ear. I'll be here for you. The following weeks were hell for Thomas. Michelle grew increasingly distant, treating him like a stranger in his own home. She openly checked his phone every night, reading every message, reviewing every call. If you have nothing to hide, what are you afraid of? Michelle said when Thomas protested. Each morning, he woke with a strange grogginess, as if he'd been drinking, though he'd only had tea before bed. His belongings began disappearing or appearing in strange places, car keys in the refrigerator, wallet in the trash, phone in Hannah's closet. You're losing your memory, Michelle shook her head when Thomas complained, maybe from stress or guilt. At work, colleagues began looking at him strangely. During a Zoom meeting, Regional Director Carl Morrison suddenly asked, Thomas, I saw you on Bayshore Boulevard with a redhead yesterday. Introduce us. What? I was home all day yesterday. Come on, I saw you clearly. You were eating ice cream at Ben & Jerry's. Thomas felt like he was going insane. Someone was deliberately destroying his life, but he couldn't prove it. Credit card statements began showing strange charges: $200 at the Westin Hotel, $150 at a romantic restaurant in Ybor City, $89 at Victoria's Secret. When Thomas called the bank, they confirmed all transactions were valid with his PIN. How do you explain this? Michelle waved the statements in his face, Hannah standing behind her sister like a bodyguard. I don't know. I swear to God, I didn't. Stop swearing, Michelle screamed. You disgust me. That night, Thomas lay on the living room sofa, staring at the ceiling in darkness. He could hear whispers from the master bedroom, Michelle and Hannah talking. Occasionally, there was giggling. The next morning, when Thomas entered the kitchen, the two sisters fell silent. Hannah smiled at him, a bizarre smile. Morning, Thomas. Sleep well? Fine, Thomas mumbled, pouring coffee. You look tired. Hannah moved closer. Maybe you need someone to take care of you. Hannah! Michelle snapped. Enough! I'm just worried about him. Hannah shrugged. After all, he's going through a difficult time. Thomas looked between the two sisters. Something was very wrong. The way they interacted, the glances they exchanged, as if performing a play where only he didn't know the script. I need to go to work, Thomas said, taking his coffee and leaving the kitchen. When he stepped into the garage, his heart pounding. Under the car, he spotted something reflective. Bending to check, he discovered a small magnetic device, a GPS tracker. Thomas's hands shook as he removed the device. Everything was becoming clear. Someone wasn't just following him, they were orchestrating an elaborate performance to destroy him. But who? And why? Thomas pocketed the device, determined to find the truth. He didn't know that from the second-floor window, Hannah was watching with a satisfied smile, her phone sending a message. He found the tracker. Phase 2 begins. Early morning fog blanketed the emerald waters of Anna Maria Island Bay. Thomas sat silently on the fishing boat, rod in hand, but mind somewhere far away. Beside him, Jason Miller, his best friend and business partner, waited patiently. You're not okay, Jason finally spoke. Not a question, but a statement. Since the pandemic started, you've been like a lost soul. Thomas sighed, watching the water's gentle ripples. The day's first sunlight pierced through clouds, creating brilliant golden streaks across the sea. "Jason, I think I'm going crazy." "Tell me." And Thomas told him. About Hannah with her loaded glances, the mysterious messages, the dating profiles on his laptop, the sleeping pills in his tea, the GPS device under his car. The more he spoke, the more his voice trembled. "I know it sounds paranoid, but I swear." "No," Jason interrupted, looking straight at Thomas. "Not paranoid at all. Someone's playing dirty with you." Thomas looked up, surprised by his friend's absolute trust. Jason nodded slowly. "I've known you for 15 years, Thomas. You're not that kind of person, and what you're describing, it's too systematic to be coincidence. So what do I do?" Jason pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. "Samuel Chen, ex-FBI, now a private investigator. This guy's good, specializes in complex cases. I hired him last year when I suspected the head accountant was embezzling." "A private investigator?" Thomas hesitated. "I don't want to make this bigger." "Do you want to know the truth?" Jason asked directly. "Or do you want to keep living in this nightmare?" 2 days later, Thomas met Samuel Chen at a small downtown Tampa cafe. Samuel, an Asian man around 38 with an intelligent appearance and sharp eyes, listened to Thomas's story without interrupting. "Mr. Walker," Samuel said after Thomas finished, his voice calm but empathetic, "you're the victim of an organized gaslighting campaign. The question is, who and why?" "I don't know." Thomas shook his head desperately. "I've never hurt anyone." "Sometimes the motive isn't revenge." Samuel sipped his black coffee. "It could be jealousy, greed, or desire." "Desire?" "The desire to possess what doesn't belong to them." Samuel looked directly into Thomas's eyes. "Now, I need you to do several things. First, install hidden cameras in your home. I'll lend you the equipment. Second, stay calm and play along as if you know nothing. Third, document everything unusual." "What about Michelle?" "Don't tell your wife anything, not yet." Samuel's tone was serious. "If she's involved, we need evidence. If not, your suspicions will only push her further away." That afternoon, Thomas installed tiny cameras in his office and garage, 2 places he often spent time alone. He also created a secret cloud account to store all evidence. And then, the first discovery left him stunned. It was a Thursday night. Michelle made him tea before bed as usual. "Chamomile tea helps you sleep well," as she always said. Thomas pretended to drink, but actually poured it into a potted plant. Half an hour later, he lay still, pretending to sleep. The guest room door opened. Michelle entered, Hannah following. "Still working?" Hannah whispered. "He'll be completely unconscious in 15 minutes, Michelle replied. "This dose is enough to knock him out until morning." Thomas had to use all his willpower to keep his breathing steady. His heart pounded like a drum. "Are you sure?" Hannah sounded worried. "If he discovers—" "He won't discover anything," Michelle laughed dismissively. "Thomas is too trusting, too naive. That's his fatal weakness." The sisters left. Thomas lay still for another half hour before daring to open his eyes, his body drenched in cold sweat. The next morning he checked the garage camera and discovered Hannah sneaking in at 3 a.m., installing a new GPS device under his car. Samuel Chen sat in his small Ybor City office, computer screens displaying arrays of data. Thomas sat opposite, hands trembling as he held his coffee cup. The fake messages, Samuel pointed to the screen, were all sent from an IP address matching your home Wi-Fi, specifically from Hannah's device. Hannah. Thomas couldn't believe his ears. "That's not all," Samuel continued, opening another file. "I obtained security camera footage from the Marriott and the mentioned locations. You never appeared, but—" He paused, enlarging an image. A man with Thomas's build, wearing a baseball cap and mask, walking with a red-haired woman. "Hired actors," Samuel concluded, "professional ones. They knew exactly which camera angles would create the illusion." Thomas felt dizzy. Why would Hannah? "There's more." Samuel opened another file. "Your wife's bank statements. Over the past 6 months, she's transferred a total of $47,000 from your joint account to her personal account. Small amounts, multiple times, so you wouldn't notice." "47,000, Thomas muttered. And this, Samuel handed Thomas a stack of documents. Hannah's phone records from 2018, hundreds of calls and texts with someone named Marcus Rivera. Know who this guy is? Thomas shook his head. A problem solver in Miami, the kind of person you hire when you want someone to. Have an accident. The blood in Thomas's veins turned to ice. She hired someone to... Exactly. According to the money transfers, they've made a $5,000 deposit. The rest will be paid after the job is complete. Expected mid-next month. Thomas held his head, trying to process the information. His wife and sister-in-law were planning not just to destroy his reputation, but his life. There's also this. Samuel pushed over a pink notebook. Hannah's diary, thrown in your trash last week. Lucky my garbage collector is observant. Thomas opened it, reading the handwritten lines. June 15th, 2018. Saw Thomas again at Jenny's wedding. He's still as handsome as ever. Michelle doesn't deserve him. December 23rd, 2019. Christmas at my sister's. Thomas hugged me for the holidays. I wish that moment could last forever. March 3rd, 2020. Josh finally agreed to divorce. Finally, I'll be free to pursue true happiness. Thomas, I'll make you mine. The more he read, the more horrified Thomas became. Hundreds of pages about him, every tiny detail, every memory, every sick fantasy about their future life together. Obsession, Samuel observed. Hannah's been obsessed with you for years, and it seems Michelle. Michelle knows, Thomas completed the sentence, his voice bitter. And she's using it. Exactly. The sisters are collaborating, one from jealousy and greed, the other from love obsession. Saturday night at the end of May, Thomas pretended to go to bed early after drinking Michelle's calming tea. The hidden camera in his home office was ready, connected directly to Samuel's phone parked outside. Around 11 p.m., the office door opened. Michelle and Hannah snuck in, confident Thomas was sound asleep under the drug's influence. "Close the door," Michelle ordered. Hannah obeyed, then sat on the leather sofa. Michelle took a bottle of wine from the cabinet, a 2010 Chateau Margaux that Thomas saved for special occasions. "Let's celebrate a little early," Michelle laughed, pouring wine. 3 more weeks and everything will be over." Through the camera, image and sound were crystal clear. Samuel was recording everything. "Are you sure Marcus will make it look like an accident?" Hannah asked, her voice small. "Of course. $25,000 isn't small change. He'll do clean work." Michelle sipped her wine. "Car accident on the way home from work. Thomas always drives recklessly when stressed." "I still think..." Hannah hesitated. "Isn't there another way? I love him. I don't want..." "You don't want what?" Michelle glared at her sister. "Don't want him dead, or don't want him to belong to you?" Hannah lowered her head. I've loved Thomas since the day we met. At your wedding, when he danced with me to Thinking Out Loud, I knew he was my destiny." "Then this is your chance." Michelle leaned toward her sister. "After Thomas passes away, you'll stay to comfort me. Then as time passes, I'll move away, maybe to California, start fresh. And you, and I'll have everything," Hannah said dreamily. "This house, his job at Pharmatech I've already applied. I'll live the life I should have had." Michelle laughed coldly. "You really are crazy, but lucky for you, your craziness is useful to me." "Why do you hate him so much?" Hannah suddenly asked. Michelle was silent for a long moment, staring at her deep red wine. "Hate? No, you're wrong. I don't hate Thomas. I'm sick of his perfection. Always right, always kind, always loving unconditionally. He makes me feel terrible about myself." "You cheated," Hannah said, not a question. "With Robert from the office," Michelle admitted. 2 years ago. Thomas doesn't know or pretends not to know. He still treats me like a queen. That drives me crazy." "So why not divorce?" Michelle laughed shrilly. "And lose everything? This house, the money, social status? Never. Better to turn him into the betrayer than afterward." "Afterward he dies as a pathetic cheater," Hannah completed the sentence. "Exactly. I'll be the pitiful widow and you can embrace your insane fantasy. Win-win." The sisters clinked glasses. The sound of crystal meeting rang through the quiet room like a death knell. The following days were torture for Thomas. Each morning waking up, he had to wear the mask of an unknowing husband while his heart felt pierced by 1,000 knives. Michelle continued playing the betrayed wife. She invited friends over, crying about Thomas's changes. Hannah was always there, comforting her sister while glancing at Thomas with eyes full of sick desire. "I'm so worried about Michelle," Patricia, Michelle's close friend, told Thomas one afternoon. "She loves you so much. How could you?" "I haven't done anything." Thomas tried to keep his voice calm. "It's just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Patricia raised an eyebrow. "With those messages and dating profiles?" Thomas remained silent. He couldn't explain, couldn't prove anything. The web of lies was too tight. At the office, things were no better. Rumors spread quickly Thomas Walker, the exemplary manager, was having an affair. Colleagues looked at him with contempt or pity. "Thomas," Director Carl called him into the office one afternoon, "I've heard some things about your personal life." "It's all a misunderstanding, Carl." "Maybe, but company image comes first. If this affects work." The meaning was clear. The job he'd loved for 15 years was in jeopardy. Each night, after pretending to drink the sleeping tea, Thomas lay still listening to sounds in the house. Michelle and Hannah whispering, giggling, planning. Sometimes he heard Marcus's name mentioned. One night, Hannah pushed open the guest room door, approaching the sofa where Thomas lay. He quickly closed his eyes, pretending to sleep. She sat beside him, her hand lightly brushing his cheek. "Dear Thomas," she whispered, "just a little longer. Then I'll free you from all this, and we'll be together forever." She leaned down, lips almost touching his. Thomas had to use all his willpower not to open his eyes and push her away. Hannah sighed, stood up and left. When he was sure she was gone, Thomas opened his eyes, tears silently flowing down his temples. The woman he'd loved for 15 years was planning to kill him. Her sister, whom he'd considered family, was obsessed with him to the point of sickness. In the darkness, Thomas took his phone, texting Samuel, "I can't take this much longer." The reply came immediately. "Patience. We almost have enough evidence. Justice will come." Thomas looked out the window, a crescent moon hanging in the Florida sky. Somewhere out there, Marcus Rivera was counting down to Action Day. But Thomas Walker wasn't an easy victim. He had his own plan, and when the storm broke, no one could imagine its destructive power. Attorney Stephen Morrison's office occupied the 15th floor of the SunTrust Financial Center, overlooking downtown Tampa. Thomas sat in the luxurious waiting room with oak and leather furnishings, his heart full of conflict. Stephen Morrison, the lawyer Michelle had chosen for her divorce. "Mr. Walker?" the secretary called. "Mr. Morrison is ready to see you." Thomas entered the spacious office. Stephen, a tall man with salt and pepper hair in an Armani suit, stood to shake hands. "Thomas." His voice was deep but curious. "I must admit, when I received your call, I was quite surprised." "Thank you for seeing me." Thomas sat down. "I know this seems strange." Stephen chuckled lightly. "Strange is putting it mildly. Your wife hired me last week to prepare for divorce, and now you're sitting here. I hope you understand about conflicts of interest." "I understand," Thomas nodded. "But I think you need to see this before deciding." Thomas placed a USB on the desk. Stephen frowned but plugged it into his computer. His face gradually changed color as he watched the video of Hannah and Michelle planning to kill Thomas. "My God," Stephen whispered when the video ended. He removed his glasses, rubbing his temples. "This is just the tip of the iceberg," Thomas said, handing over a thick file. "Evidence of financial fraud, hiring a hitman, poisoning with sleeping pills, all documented with videos and recordings." Stephen read each page in silence, his expression growing more serious with each line. Finally, he looked up at Thomas. "You know, in 20 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this." He paused. "Michelle. She sat right where you're sitting, crying about your betrayal. It was all staged." "I see that." Stephen stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. "I have a proposal for you, Thomas. I'll decline to represent Michelle citing scheduling conflicts, and I'll represent you." Thomas was surprised. "You'll?" Stephen turned back, eyes resolute. I became a divorce attorney because I believe in justice for those hurt in marriage. What Michelle and Hannah are doing, that's not just betrayal, it's criminal. I'll help you, not just civilly, but criminally. The two men shook hands. Now, Stephen returned to his chair, taking out his notepad. We need a strategy. First, report the hitman plot to the police immediately. Samuel Chen has already contacted the FBI, Thomas informed him. Marcus Rivera is under surveillance. Good. Next, asset protection. I'll get an emergency court order to freeze all joint accounts. How much has Michelle taken? $47,000 so far. Stephen made notes. We'll recover that, plus damages. About the poisoning. I've kept T samples and had them tested, Thomas said. Results show zolpidem levels 3 times the normal dose. Excellent. That's evidence of felony assault. Stephen looked directly at Thomas. I won't lie, Michelle will fight hard. She has a wide network in real estate. But with this evidence... I don't care about money, Thomas interrupted. I just want justice and safety. Stephen nodded. You'll have both. I guarantee it. Over the next week, Thomas quietly executed the asset protection plan under Stephen's guidance. Each step was carefully calculated so Michelle wouldn't notice. Monday morning, Thomas went to the Wells Fargo West Shore branch. Account manager Janet Williams had worked with him for over 10 years. Thomas, long time no see, she greeted warmly. What can I help you with? Janet, Thomas lowered his voice. I need to transfer all my 401k and investment portfolio to a new account. In my name only. Janet frowned. That's a large sum, Thomas. Nearly $800,000 is something. Please don't ask, Thomas pleaded. Just know I have valid reasons, and it's legal. Janet looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. I'll process it immediately. It'll take about 3 business days. Next, Thomas went to the insurance company. Changed beneficiaries on all policies from the $2 million life insurance to car insurance. Michelle was no longer the sole heir. Instead, most would go to Thomas's elderly parents in North Carolina. In the afternoon, Jason helped Thomas rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Channelside District. The apartment was on the 12th floor with a balcony overlooking Tampa Bay, fully furnished. You sure? Jason asked while signing the lease. Once you start, there's no going back. I know. Thomas looked out the window where yachts sparkled in the sun. But I can't keep living in lies. Meanwhile, at the Hyde Park house, Thomas continued playing the unknowing husband. Each night still pretending to drink the sleeping tea, still enduring Michelle's poisonous words and Hannah's hungry gazes. One night, Thomas discovered something unexpected. While cleaning the attic looking for old photo albums, he found a sealed cardboard box. Inside were ownership papers for 3 Miami Beach condos, all in Michelle's name, bought with secret commissions over 3 years. Son of a bitch, Thomas muttered. Total estimated value over $1.5 million. Michelle had built an entire secret real estate empire. He photographed all documents, sending them to Stephen. The reply came immediately. Bingo, this is large-scale marital asset fraud. She'll lose everything. But the biggest discovery came from Michelle's jewelry box. In an old envelope, Thomas found photos and messages evidence of the affair with Robert from the brokerage office 2 years ago. Photos of them embracing in hotel rooms, romantic messages, hotel receipts. Thomas felt nauseous. Not from jealousy, love had died long ago, but from the deception. Michelle had betrayed him, then planned to kill him for a crime he didn't commit. A grand birthday party for you, Thomas said at dinner, his voice artificially sweet. You're turning 40 soon. It only happens once. Michelle looked up from her salad, surprised. You want to throw me a party? Of course. Thomas took his wife's hand across the dinner table. Even though things between us are complicated, I still want you to have a memorable birthday. Hannah watched from the other end of the table, eyes narrowed suspiciously. Where? Michelle asked, her voice softening. Vinoy Renaissance Resort, the Grand Ballroom. I've booked for 200 guests. 200. Michelle's jaw dropped. Thomas, the cost. Don't worry about money, Thomas waved. I want to invite your whole family from Georgia, all your colleagues, friends, a truly lavish party. Michelle looked at her husband for a long time, as if trying to read his thoughts. Finally, she smiled the smile of someone who thought they'd won. "You're wonderful," she said. "I agree." "Great." Thomas turned to Hannah. "You'll help me, right? You have good aesthetic taste." Hannah nearly choked on her drink. Of course. I'd be happy to help." Over the next 2 weeks, Thomas and Hannah planned the party together. Each time they met with the wedding planner, Hannah dressed seductively, deliberately touching Thomas. "Pastel pink and gold," Hannah suggested, leaning across the table so Thomas could see her cleavage. "Michelle likes luxury." "Wonderful," Thomas agreed, maintaining polite distance. "And about the video presentation." "What video?" "I want to make a video about our marriage. 15 years of happiness," Thomas said, voice full of fake emotion. "To play during the party." Hannah laughed awkwardly. "Nice idea. Michelle will be touched." Meanwhile, Thomas secretly hired a professional film crew not just to film the party, but to install hidden cameras throughout the ballroom. Every angle, every table would be recorded. "I want to capture every moment," Thomas told Jake, the head videographer. "Every reaction, every word." "No problem," Jake assured. "We'll have 6 cameras plus a drone for aerial shots." Thomas also sent invitations to Michelle's family in Georgia. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, had always loved Thomas like a son. They would sit at the head table right in front of the stage. 2 days before the party, Thomas bought Michelle a diamond jewelry set from Tiffany & Company necklace, earrings, and bracelet worth $50,000. "Thomas!" Michelle exclaimed, opening the signature blue box. "This is too expensive." "You deserve it," Thomas hugged his wife from behind. "I want you to be the most dazzling on your birthday night." Michelle turned around, eyes brimming with tears. For a moment, Thomas saw a glimpse of the woman he once loved before ambition, and lies turned her into a monster. "You know," Michelle whispered, "sometimes I wish." "Wish what?" She shook her head. "Nothing. Thank you." That evening, Thomas overheard Michelle on the phone with Hannah in the bathroom. "He completely trusts me again. The party will be the perfect opportunity. Marcus can act when he drives home after the party." "Are you sure?" Hannah's voice through the speaker. "He's being so good to you." "Don't be fooled," Michelle snapped. "That's just how he maintains his perfect husband image. After the party, everyone will remember him as the loving husband. No one will suspect when the accident happens." Thomas quietly left, his heart heavy. He called Samuel. "Make sure Marcus is arrested the moment he gets near the Vinoy," Thomas ordered. "Already arranged," Samuel assured. "FBI will be there. He won't get near you." The night before the party, there was a small pre-party at home. Michelle invited close friends, including Hannah. Wine flowed freely, the atmosphere buzzing. Thomas noticed Hannah drinking quite a bit. He discreetly replaced her wine with something stronger. By late evening, Hannah was thoroughly drunk. "Thomas, darling," she stumbled to find him in the kitchen. "Do you know how long I've loved you?" Thomas turned on the recorder in his pocket. "How long, Hannah?" "Since your wedding day," she hiccuped. "When you danced with me to Thinking Out Loud, I knew. I knew you were the man of my life." "But you're Michelle's sister." "Screw Michelle," Hannah almost shouted. "She doesn't deserve you. She cheated with Robert. She lied to you. I'm the one who truly loves you." "Then why are you helping her?" Thomas led. Hannah laughed maniacally. "Because after you're gone, I'll comfort her. Then I'll have everything: this house, your job, your life. I'll live as if I were your wife." "How long have you and Michelle been planning this?" 6 months. Hannah leaned into Thomas. "When Josh divorced me, I knew it was my chance. Michelle also wanted to get rid of you, but didn't want to lose money. Win when you understand?" Thomas helped Hannah sit down. "You're tired. Sleep." "Kiss me," Hannah begged. "Just once. Before." "Before what?" "Before everything ends," she whispered, then passed out. Thomas turned off the recorder. The final piece was complete. He looked out the window. The Florida sky was pitch black, starless. The storm was coming. Tomorrow at Michelle's birthday party, everything would collapse. But tonight, Thomas Walker stood alone in the kitchen, listening to the steady breathing of the deranged woman who loved him, and the happy laughter of the wife planning to kill him. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. Just a few more hours. A few more hours of being husband Thomas Walker. After that, he would be free, or at least justice would be served. The sun was slowly setting over Tampa Bay, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. The Vinoy Renaissance Resort stood majestically like a pastel pink palace, warm yellow lights beginning to illuminate each window. In the grand ballroom, 200 guests were gathering for Michelle Walker's 40th birthday celebration. Thomas stood near the entrance, his navy Armani suit accentuating the refined appearance of a 42-year-old man. He smiled, greeting each guest with handshakes, embraces, and social pleasantries. No one could guess the storm brewing within him. "Thomas, my beloved son-in-law!" Mrs. Thompson, Michelle's mother from Georgia, embraced him warmly. She was a 65-year-old woman with carefully styled silver hair and the same blue eyes as Michelle. "How are you, Mom?" Thomas hugged her back, his heart tightening at the thought of what was about to unfold. "I'm wonderful. Thank you for organizing this amazing party for Michelle. My daughter is so lucky." Thomas swallowed the lump in his throat. "I do everything for Michelle, Mom." "Mr. Thompson, a 68-year-old man with the stern appearance of a former military officer, patted Thomas's shoulder. "We've always known you're a good man, Thomas. Michelle can be. Difficult sometimes, but you're always patient." "Thank you, Dad," Thomas said, leading them to the head table right in front of the stage. "Please sit here. You'll have the best view." Guests continued to arrive in greater numbers. Michelle's colleagues from Coastal Realty, friends from her yoga club, neighbors from Hyde Park. Each brought expensive gifts and bright smiles. And then, Michelle appeared. She entered the ballroom in a red Valentino cocktail dress, her golden hair swept up in an elegant bun. The diamond jewelry Thomas had just given her sparkling under the crystal chandeliers. At 40, Michelle was still a stunningly beautiful woman, striding confidently like a queen. "Happy birthday, darling," Thomas approached, kissing his wife's cheek lightly. "You look beautiful." Michelle smiled, but Thomas recognized the triumph in her eyes. "Thank you. Everything is wonderful." Hannah appeared behind her sister, wearing an emerald green dress with a daringly high slit. She deliberately stood close to Thomas, letting her heavy perfume assault his nostrils. "Thomas," Hannah whispered, her hand brushing his arm. "You look so handsome tonight." "Thank you, Hannah." Thomas politely stepped away. "You two should go mingle with the guests. I need to check a few things with the organizers." Thomas walked backstage where Jake and the film crew were preparing. 6 cameras had been positioned throughout the room, missing no angle. "Everything ready?" Thomas asked. "Perfect," Jake nodded. "We're live streaming everything to cloud backup. Can't be deleted or destroyed." Thomas looked out at the ballroom. Michelle was laughing cheerfully with friends, occasionally glancing his way with cold eyes. Hannah hovered nearby, always within Thomas's sight. His phone buzzed. A message from Samuel. "Marcus Rivera just arrested approaching the hotel. FBI has him. Continue with the plan." Thomas exhaled in relief. At least he wouldn't be assassinated tonight. The party proceeded smoothly. The appetizer was Maine lobster with truffle butter, the main course Wagyu beef with mashed potatoes. Expensive French wine flowed freely. The atmosphere was joyful, warm, perfect for a beloved wife's birthday party. When the clock struck 9 p.m., Thomas stood, tapping lightly on his crystal glass. The ballroom gradually fell silent, 200 pairs of eyes turning toward him. "Good evening, everyone," Thomas began, his voice warm through the microphone. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my wife Michelle's 40th birthday." Applause erupted. Michelle stood, waving to everyone, her smile radiant. 15 years ago, Thomas continued, I met a beautiful girl at an art exhibition in Miami. She stood before a painting of a sunset over the ocean, and when she turned to look at me, I knew my life had changed forever. "Oh, Thomas," Michelle feigned emotion, placing her hand over her heart. "We built a wonderful life together." Thomas looked directly into his wife's eyes. "A beautiful home, successful careers, unforgettable memories. I've prepared a short video about our journey. Please, everyone, watch." The ballroom lights dimmed. The massive LED screen behind Thomas illuminated. Soft background music began, Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud, the song Thomas and Hannah had danced to at the wedding. The video began with happy photos, the beach wedding, vacations in Italy, Christmas with family. Michelle covered her face, tears rolling down, perhaps from emotion, perhaps from believing she had won completely. But, Thomas said as the video paused on a black frame, every marriage has its own truth. Michelle looked up, frowning. Hannah, sitting at a nearby table, suddenly jumped to her feet. The video continued. This time not happy photos, but audio recordings. Hannah's voice rang through the silent ballroom. I've loved Thomas from the first day we met. At your wedding, when he danced with me to Thinking Out Loud, I knew he was my destiny. Murmurs arose. Michelle turned to look at her sister, face pale. Hannah tried to run for the door, but two security guards arranged by Samuel blocked her way. The video continued. Hidden camera footage from the office. Michelle and Hannah sitting with wine, planning, after Thomas passes away, you'll stay to comfort me. Then as time passes, I'll move away. And you'll have everything this house, his job. What is my daughter doing? Mrs. Thompson stood up, trembling. But the video didn't stop. Michelle's confession, I don't hate Thomas, I just hate his perfection. He makes me feel terrible about myself. I cheated with Robert from the office 2 years ago. Screams erupted from Michelle's colleague's table. Robert, a 45-year-old man, tried to sneak out of the room, but his wife had already grabbed his collar. Thomas raised his hand. The ballroom fell silent again. There's more. The screen displayed images of Michelle drugging the tea, Hannah installing GPS trackers under the car. Bank statements showing $47,000 stolen. Ownership papers for 3 secret Miami condos. And finally, the recording from last night. Isn't there another way? I love him, I don't want. You don't want what? Don't want him dead? Or don't want him to belong to you? Better to turn him into a betrayer than afterward. He dies as a pitiful cheater. Hell broke loose. Michelle stood up, her face shifting from shock to rage. It's all fake. Thomas made it up. But no one listened to her. Mrs. Thompson collapsed, Mr. Thompson catching his wife with a deathly expression. Michelle's colleagues pulled out phones to record. Throughout the ballroom, camera flashes blazed. You can't do this to me! Michelle screamed, lunging toward Thomas. Jason and Samuel appeared, restraining her. Hannah cowered in a corner, sobbing hysterically. Thomas, I beg you, I love you, I did it for love! You're sick! A woman from the crowd shouted. How can you love your brother-in-law? Michelle turned to attack the projector, trying to destroy the evidence. But Jake had backups. The video continued playing on all screens in the room. Call the police, someone shouted. As if on cue, the ballroom doors opened. 4 Tampa police officers entered, along with 2 FBI agents. Michelle Walker and Hannah Peterson, the chief officer announced. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and aggravated assault. No. Michelle struggled as she was handcuffed. I'm the victim. Thomas cheated. You have the right to remain silent, the officer cut her off. Anything you say can be used against you in court. Hannah collapsed to the floor, grabbing Thomas's legs. Please, I beg you. I've loved you since the wedding. I just wanted to be with you. Thomas gently removed her hands. Hannah, you need help, professional help. Police helped Hannah to her feet. She continued crying, calling Thomas's name, declaring her insane love before 200 witnesses. Michelle was escorted past the door, turning to look at Thomas one last time. You'll regret this. You hear me? You'll pay. The ballroom descended into chaos. Guests whispered, taking photos, recording videos. Michelle's parents sat slumped, aging 10 years in 10 minutes. Thomas stood in the middle of the ballroom, calm amid the storm. He took the microphone again. I apologize to everyone for witnessing this. His voice rang out clearly. I didn't want to ruin your evening, but justice had to be served. He looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. For 15 years, I loved and trusted my wife. In return, she planned to kill me. If you were in my position, what would you do? Silence engulfed the room. Then from somewhere, applause began. 1 person, 2 people. Then the entire ballroom applauded like thunder. Thank you. Thomas bowed his head. The party is over. Please, everyone, go home safely. He stepped down from the stage where Jason and Samuel waited. Michelle's parents approached. "Thomas," Mr. Thompson said, his voice choked. We didn't know. I swear to God, we didn't know our daughter." "I know," Thomas hugged them. "This isn't your fault. What will you do now?" "Mrs." Thompson asked through tears. "Live on," Thomas replied simply. "That's the best thing I can do." He left the ballroom with Jason and Samuel. Outside, reporters' flashes blazed. Fox 13, Bay News 9, Tampa Bay Times, all were present. "Mr. Walker, a few words about tonight's events. How do you feel about your wife plotting to kill you? What are your plans next?" Thomas didn't answer. He got into Jason's Audi Q7. Samuel took the driver's seat. "Let's go," Thomas said wearily. As the car left the Vinoy, Thomas's phone buzzed constantly. Messages, calls, social media notifications. He looked at the bright screen for a moment, then rolled down the window and threw the phone out. "You just threw away an iPhone 12 Pro Max?" Jason exclaimed. "I need peace." Thomas leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes. "Tonight, I just want peace." The car sped into the Florida night. Behind them, the Vinoy Renaissance Resort gradually shrank, its yellow lights fading in the rearview mirror. With it went 15 years of marriage, 15 years of lies, 15 years of illusion. Thomas opened his eyes, looking out the window. A crescent moon hung in the clear sky. The cool Tampa Bay breeze blew into the car. For the first time in months, Thomas Walker could breathe. Really breathe. "To your new apartment?" Samuel asked. "There," Thomas nodded. "To where I can start over." The car turned into Channelside, where tall buildings reflected their lights on the water. Somewhere in the city, Michelle and Hannah sat in holding cells. Marcus Rivera was being interrogated by the FBI, but Thomas no longer thought about them. He thought about tomorrow, about freedom, about the new life waiting. The storm had passed, and like all storms, it left behind clearer skies than ever before. Courtroom 7 at Hillsborough County Courthouse was thick with tension. October sunlight streamed through tall windows, creating diagonal beams across the polished wooden floor. Thomas Walker sat straight-backed on the hard wooden bench, his charcoal gray suit immaculate, eyes fixed straight ahead. Across the aisle, Michelle sat in orange prison garb, her once lustrous golden hair now dull and tangled. Beside her, Hannah trembled in similar attire, eyes red from crying. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "Court is now in session. Judge Rebecca Martinez presiding." Judge Martinez, a stern Latin woman around 55, entered, black robes flowing. She sat down, put on her glasses, and reviewed the files before her. "The state of Florida versus Michelle Walker and Hannah Peterson," she read. "Charges include first-degree conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated assault, financial fraud, and obstruction of justice." Michelle's lawyer, a young man named David Chen, stood. "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty." "Noted," the judge nodded. "Prosecutor, please proceed." Linda Rodriguez, the county's veteran prosecutor, stood. "Your Honor, we have irrefutable evidence of an organized conspiracy to harm and ultimately murder Mr. Thomas Walker." The large screen in the courtroom began playing video clips from the birthday party. Michelle and Hannah's voices planning rang out clearly. Images of drugging, GPS tracker installation, evidence of hiring a hitman. "That's deepfake!" Michelle suddenly screamed. "Thomas has money! He hired people to fake it!" "The defendant will be silent." The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Chen, control your client." The trial lasted 3 days. Witness after witness testified, Samuel Chen as the detective, technology experts confirming the videos were authentic, FBI agents describing Marcus Rivera's arrest. When Thomas took the witness stand, the entire courtroom fell silent. "Mr. Walker," Prosecutor Rodriguez asked, "please describe your emotions upon discovering your wife's plot to kill you." Thomas was quiet for a moment, looking directly at Michelle. "I felt loss. Not for myself, but for the woman I once loved. She died long ago, replaced by the stranger sitting there." "I love you!" Hannah suddenly screamed. "Thomas, I love you! I did it for love!" The judge banged her gavel forcefully. "Final warning! One more time, I'll hold you in contempt." On the 4th day, the jury delivered their verdict after just 2 hours of deliberation. On the charge of first-degree conspiracy to commit murder, the jury finds Michelle Walker guilty. On the charge of aggravated assault, guilty. On the charge of financial fraud, guilty. Michelle slumped in her chair, face ashen. Hannah sobbed uncontrollably. 2 weeks later, sentencing day. Michelle Walker, Judge Martinez spoke solemnly, you are sentenced to 25 years in Florida Women's Correctional Facility. Additionally, you must pay $500,000 in restitution to the victim. Hannah Peterson, you are sentenced to 18 months imprisonment and mandatory psychiatric treatment. A permanent restraining order against Thomas Walker is hereby issued. No! Hannah screamed as she was led away. Thomas, I'll wait for you. I'll always love you. Michelle turned to look at Thomas one last time, eyes full of hatred. But then, for a brief second, Thomas saw a flash of regret. Or perhaps he only imagined it. The courtroom gradually emptied. Thomas sat still for a long moment, absorbing the silence. Stephen Morrison, his lawyer, patted his shoulder. It's over, Stephen said. You're free. Yes, Thomas stood up. Finally over. 6 months later. Thomas sat in his Channelside apartment living room reviewing a stack of mail. Most were letters from lawyers about asset division. He kept the Hyde Park house and most assets. Michelle's 3 secret condos were seized for restitution, but there were other letters. From prison. Michelle's first letter arrived 3 months after she entered prison. Thomas, you destroyed my life. I lost everything: career, reputation, freedom. Are you satisfied? I curse you. But sometimes in the cold, dark nights here, I remember we were once happy. Where did I go wrong? When did love turn to hate? Michelle. Thomas folded the letter, not responding. He had learned that silence was sometimes the most eloquent answer. Michelle's subsequent letters oscillated between threats and pleas. When I get out, you'll pay. Thomas, I'm sorry. Hannah seduced me. Give me another chance? I hate you. Hate. Hate. Do you remember our wedding reception? I really loved you then. Thomas burned them all, ashes flying in the wind from his balcony. News about Hannah came from the psychiatric hospital. Dr. Patricia Lawson called, Mr. Walker, I'm Hannah Peterson's treating physician. I think you should know. Her condition is quite complex. How complex? She lives entirely in an imaginary world. In it, you two are married with 2 children. She talks to you daily, just hallucinations, of course. She paints pictures of this imaginary family life. Thomas sighed. Can she recover? With proper treatment and time, possibly. But her obsession with you runs very deep. I advise no contact, even if she sends letters. The Thompson family, Michelle's parents, contacted him once. Dear Thomas, we don't know what to say except sorry. We failed in raising our daughters. Michelle and Hannah are no longer our children. You deserve a better life. Please forget and be happy. Love, Mom and Dad Thompson. The birthday party video went viral on social media. The birthday revenge garnered millions of views. Thomas received thousands of messages from strangers. You're my hero. The way you handled it was legendary. My wife cheated too. You gave me courage to face it. There were invitations for TV appearances, book deals, movie offers. Thomas declined them all. He didn't want fame from his pain. Spring 2021, Thomas decided to sell the Hyde Park house. Too many toxic memories seeped into every wall. You sure? Jason asked while helping Thomas pack. This was your dream home. Dreams die. Thomas looked around the living room where Michelle and Hannah had plotted to kill him. I need new space. The house sold for $1.2 million. Thomas bought a Winnebago RV and hit the road. No specific plans, just going. First stop, the Everglades. Thomas spent a week photographing alligators, birds, and sunsets over the marshlands. For the first time in months, he felt peace. Next was New Orleans, where jazz music wound through ancient streets. Thomas sat in Café du Monde, eating beignets and drinking chicory coffee, watching people pass by. A young woman sat nearby to escape the rain. You look familiar, she said. Are you? No. Thomas gently cut her off. I'm just a tourist. She nodded, understanding. They sat in silence, listening to rain on the awning. Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Yosemite. Thomas drove through America's magnificent landscapes. His Canon 5D Mark IV never left his hands, capturing nature's raw beauty. At a domestic violence support center in Denver, Thomas stopped and volunteered. "How can I help?" he asked the manager, Maria Gonzalez. "What skills do you have?" Thomas thought for a moment. "I have experience, surviving." Maria looked at him for a long time, then nodded. "Sometimes that's the most important skill." Thomas spent 2 weeks sharing his story with men because, yes, victims weren't just women. They listened with rare empathy. "How did you get through?" a young man named Kevin asked. "My wife. She hits me, but no one believes it." "Evidence," Thomas said, "and patience, and most importantly, knowing you deserve respect." Finally, Thomas drove home to North Carolina. His elderly parents, Dad, 72, Mom, 70, welcomed him with open arms. "My son," his mother hugged him tightly. "I was so worried." "I'm okay, Mom." Thomas kissed her gray hair. "Really okay." He spent a month at home, helping Dad fix the roof, planting tomatoes with Mom, simple things that healed. "Will you marry again?" Mom asked one evening as they sat on the porch. Thomas looked out at the garden where fireflies flickered in the darkness. "Maybe someday, when I'm ready to trust again." June 2022. Asheville, North Carolina. Thomas stood before a small studio door on River Arts District Street, key in hand. The newly painted wooden sign read, "Mountain Light Photography, Thomas Walker." "Congratulations!" Jason clapped his friend's shoulder. He'd flown up from Florida for the opening. "You deserve a fresh start." The studio was small but cozy. Walls displayed photos Thomas had taken during his cross-country journey. In back was a dark room for developing film. A small corner showcased vintage cameras he'd collected. His first clients were a couple wanting wedding photos at Blue Ridge Parkway. Thomas led them up the mountain at dawn, capturing the moment of sunrise behind misty peaks. "Beautiful," the bride exclaimed, viewing the photos. "You shoot as if you understand love." Thomas smiled sadly. "I understand both love and loss. That helps me treasure beautiful moments." In autumn, while photographing fall foliage in Pisgah National Forest, Thomas met Sarah. She was a 35-year-old ranger, brown hair in a ponytail, bright green eyes. "This area's restricted," she said, but smiled. "Sorry," Thomas held up his camera. "I'm a photographer. The light was too beautiful to miss." Sarah looked through his camera lens. "Wow, you're really good. Can I hire you to shoot for our environmental education program?" They began working together. Sarah led Thomas to beautiful, little-known spots. Thomas photographed for nature conservation materials. "You're not local," Sarah observed during a hike. "Tampa, Florida," Thomas panted, climbing the slope. "Moved here last year." "Alone?" "Alone." Sarah didn't ask more. What Thomas appreciated about her respecting boundaries. In December, Thomas opened photography classes for beginners. 10 students of all ages gathered in the cozy studio. "Photography isn't just technique," Thomas said in the first class. "It's a way of seeing. It's finding beauty in everything, even in darkness." A student raised her hand. "How long have you been photographing?" "All my life," Thomas replied. "But I only really started seeing 2 years ago." After class, Sarah waited with 2 cups of coffee. "Hot chocolate?" They sat in the studio, looking at photos on the walls. Streetlight filtered through windows, casting long shadows on the floor. "You have a story," Sarah said gently. "I can see it through your photos. Pain, but also hope." Thomas was silent for a long time. "Someday I'll tell you." "When you're ready." Sarah stood up. "I'm a good listener." She left, leaving Thomas with hot chocolate and a strange warmth in his heart. That night, the season's first snow fell on Asheville. Thomas stood at the studio window, watching snowflakes dance in the lamplight. His phone buzzed. Email from the lawyer Michelle would be released soon after sentence reduction for good behavior. Hannah remained in the psychiatric hospital. Thomas deleted the email without replying. The past was past. He picked up his camera, stepped out into the snow. Through the lens, the world became pure white, full of promise. Click, click, click. Each photo was a step forward, each frame part of the healing journey. The next morning, when students gathered for the lesson on photography in harsh conditions, Thomas opened with a smile. "Today's lesson," he said, holding up last night's snow photo. "The most beautiful pictures, like the most beautiful lives, come after storms." Winter sunlight streamed through windows, illuminating the small studio. Somewhere on the mountain, Sarah was leading tourists through the forest. In Florida, Michelle and Hannah were paying for their choices. But here in Asheville, in the warm studio smelling of coffee and photo paper, Thomas Walker was living, really living. And that, he realized, was the sweetest revenge of all. There are wounds that don't bleed, but bleed for a lifetime, like when you're betrayed by the person you love the most. This story is not only a dramatic revenge, but also a wake-up call. Sometimes the person who stabs you in the back is the person you sleep next to every night. Will you choose to forgive, stay silent, or stand up and turn the tables like Thomas did?